The third important aspect, important leg, the third leg of the tripod is this virtuous cycle starting from private investment. This is illustrated in the, and has been described in the 2018-19 economic survey. When we set out to identify the right strategy for India to become a $5 trillion economy, the first thing we did is we looked at all the countries over the last 1 century that grew at least 5% in real terms, 5% growth, but not just for a few years, at least a decade. In other words, at least a decade of 5% plus real growth. And when we looked at each of these countries, the first thing we recognized is that at the macroeconomic level, every variable is both a cause and an effect. For instance, investment is the cause of productivity improvements, which can then lead to growth. But investment is also the effect of anticipated increases in consumption. So investment is both a cause and an effect. Consumption is the effect of growth, more money coming in the hands of people, but consumption is also the cause of investment. Jobs are similarly the effect of economic growth, and they're also the cause of improvements in consumption through increases in disposable income. So at the macroeconomic level, every variable is both a cause and an effect. And therefore, in order to identify a strategy that can indeed deliver sustained growth, it's important to, in a scholarly way, go and really disentangle and find out what is the originator of this particular, of the virtuous cycle. And turns out across each of these countries that had 5% plus growth for at least a decade, that virtuous cycle starts from private investment. This is the, the key idea that is important for growth. It's not consumption comes as an outcome, but it's private investment that leads to productivity improvements and greater jobs overall in the economy, which then puts money in the hands of people, enhances consumption and aggregate demand. Anticipating that increase in aggregate demand, investment increases further. That's how this virtuous cycle proceeds, and that is very important for sustained growth, and therefore strengthening the two legs that I spoke about, in this context. And here, I think the role of the private sector, both in the context of wealth creation and in the virtuous cycle, because it's private investment that we're talking about, is very important. Public investment, is a trigger and a facilitator of that private investment, much as reforms on the supply side and demand side are important, because in a country like India, the frictions on the supply side are much higher, and reforms therefore to remove those frictions, be it labor reforms, be it MSME definitional changes that actually did not, before that, the phenomenon of dwarfism that remained, as a result of which firms did not grow enough and thereby did not create jobs, be it the production linked incentives that incentivizes consistent growth of enterprises, in the to be able to compete better, reap economies of scale, and thereby be competitive in the global markets. Whether it's the opening up of the entire cryptography sector, the defense sector, the privatization, thereby transferring assets to where they can be more productively employed, or asset monetization, thereby releasing assets that are idle for productive use. These are all extremely important, in this tripod of growth plus efficient welfare, ethical wealth creation focused on enabling the private sector, empowering the private sector, and the virtuous cycle that starts from private investment. These are extremely important and that's what, if you look at over the last, 1.5, 2 years, with the crescendo of the policy making being the union budget of this year has really tried to accomplish, by basically implementing the ideas in this vision for economic development.